Penguin Random House Audio presents Big Cats by Holiday Reinhorn. Read for you by a full cast.
Big Cats. The lion is the only animal that allows its captives to return home. Book of Beasts, 11th century.
Charlotte. The day Mrs. Linkabaugh moved in next door, I cracked my pubic bone in 2 places. It was 97 degrees, according to the giant thermometer Carl Bongard had hanging on the side of his house. I was swinging at the time, watching the men from the moving company slide pieces of a fuzzy red waterbed out of their truck, when my outgrown swing set pitched like a mechanical bull. A fire hydrant loomed, and I touched down somewhere along the curb. Through a small patch of consciousness, I looked up into the faces of 4 Mayflower movers as the sky ripped open, and all of the clouds dropped to earth like wet rags. At the Veterans Administration Training Hospital, I was in room 503, with air conditioning and a man named Victor Samuels, who pulled open the separating curtain every chance he got and started talking. He said he was originally from St. Louis, and that last year his prostate had started hardening up into a little missile. My mother, Bobby, said we had to be polite to Victor Samuels, no matter what, because he was probably tortured by the Vietnamese. Dr. Maryland, the orthopedist, liked Bobby right away. When he pinned up the x-rays and she asked whether smoking was all right if she held it out the window, he said, "Why don't the both of you call me Kevin, okay?" This kind of thing happens all the time. My father used to say it was because Bobby could never repulse a man, no matter how hard she tried. From the time she was 7 to 19 and a half, my mother, Roberta Marie Peake, was Miss Glendora Heights Southern Division, Miss Teen Hideaway Cove, Miss Young Zuma Beach, Miss Autumn for Sunkist, and 3rd runner-up to Miss La Jolla, because she was skinnier then and nobody could tell she was pregnant. Even now that she's almost 29, all the men still like her, and it doesn't matter whether they find out first about the trophies and the train trips and the foot modeling. Jim Juergens, the softball coach from the community center, even came into the girls' locker room when I was changing once and said he had special dreams about making love to Bobby and getting to be my father. That was the same week Coach Juergens got arrested for walking around the dugout without pants. Kevin sat in a chair at the foot of my bed and took a long time showing us the x-rays. "As you can see," he said, smiling over at Bobby, "the fractures are on the left side of the bone. To prevent a limp, I had to actually re-break the pelvis in the center, just to set the whole thing back in balance." "This is unbelievable," Bobby said, leaning over to hand me her last piece of spearmint gum. "I thought this kind of thing only happened to Denny." Kevin looked at the tan line where Bobby's wedding ring used to be. "Who is Denny?" he asked, staring at her like she was the first woman he'd ever seen in his whole life. "Usually we don't mention Denny to new people right away, because he has concentration problems and can't keep his hands off things. The last medical bill we had from Denny was when Bobby took him to the Rub-a-Dub automatic car wash and let him ride through it in the driver's seat all alone. He got into the glove compartment where Bobby left her purse and swallowed 3 sleeping pills and a half-pack of wintergreen certs and had to be rushed straight to the poison center." "Denny's my little brother," I said, and Kevin looked relieved. He turned back to the x-rays. "Actually, this was a really easy one," he said to Bobby, pointing to the problem area in the center of the screen. "Once I had a clean break, I used stainless steel to stitch up the bone." Bobby held out her hand, and I put the gum wrapper in it. "Metal stitches," she said, shaking her head at the ceiling. "Holy Christ." "It's better than a broken leg, though, isn't it?" Kevin said. "At her age, the bones are so soft it's like sewing tissue. She doesn't even have to wear a cast. Bobby sighed into her hands, and Kevin looked like he might cry. Please don't worry, he said to her. The incision will barely leave a scar. I asked Kevin if he was married. Of course he is, Bobby said, sliding the window shut and brushing her cigarette ashes off the sill. And whoever guesses how much money Kevin makes in a year gets a free Jell-O. I guessed $1 million, and Kevin smiled. I'm afraid we're only a government hospital around here, he said. I guess I get the Jell-O. Later, after Victor Samuels came back from his radiation and went to sleep, Bobby scooted her chair up next to the bed and told me 2 things. I had to call my father Collect right away to tell him I almost died, and that yesterday she had entered me in a preteen beauty contest. I reminded her that my pubic bone was broken, but she said she had already tracked down a sponsor who assured her I would not have to appear in the swimsuit section with any of the other 11-year-olds or be required to go up or down the auditorium stairs on my crutches. They said they'd even put in a ramp if we want, she said, handing me the telephone before she went off with a nurse to sign more papers. Isn't that terrific? My father was supposed to be living in Coos Bay by the water, and most of the time I was the one in charge of calling him. He wasn't usually at his house very much, but since we were in a hospital, I had the operator ring for as long a time as she could, just in case he picked up. How did his voice sound? Bobby asked when she got back from her errands. Okay, I said. It sounded all right. On my last day at the Veterans, Peggy, the physical therapist, taught me how to use the crutches. My job was to practice limping up and down the hallway on alternating legs, while she and Bobby kept the rhythm going with loud claps. In the pharmacy, on the first floor, I chose purple armrests for the crutches, and Bobby bought me flower stickers to paste on the wood. Then, when it was time to go, Kevin walked us over to our car and gave Bobby his telephone number. There are a few choices on here, he said, ripping her off an extra page from his prescription pad. So give me a buzz any time. On the drive home, Bobby told me everything she knew about our new neighbor. Her name was Mrs. Linkabaugh. Her ex-husband, Bill Linkabaugh, was not allowed within 1,000 feet of her house by order of the Oregon State Police. And on the day she finally moved in, Mrs. Linkabaugh handed out at least 50 flyers with Bill Linkabaugh's picture on them, just to warn everybody. And I want you and your brother to be very careful of characters like these, Bobby said, cutting off a delivery truck on her way into the carpool lane, because North Willamette is going downhill. North Willamette is our street. When we were with my father, we lived on North Amherst, North Lombard, and North McCrum. Now Bobby says she'll never move again, not even if North Willamette becomes a slum. Mrs. Linkabaugh's new house used to belong to Oliver Grevich, who died trying to put up his storm windows. One Saturday, he got out his ladder and climbed all the way up the side of his house and had a thrombosis. Bobby's boyfriend Dale was in the driveway when it happened, and he says Mr. Grevich hung onto his ladder the whole time, and the two of them fell together, just like a chopped-down tree. "Light me a cigarette, will you?" said Bobby. "This bitch in the gold duster won't get off my ass." When I got it lit, I tapped her, and she held out her hand so I could stick it between the right fingers. The woman in the gold duster leaned on the horn, but Bobby ignored her and smoked with her tip out the window. When the honking got louder, she stuck her middle finger in the rearview mirror. "This woman can eat me," she said, punching down the automatic lock button and pulling us back into the exit lane. "Now roll up your window and hold on, we're taking Killingsworth." I turned down the radio and kept my eyes on the floor mats, because Killingsworth and Alberta were bad avenues. The summer lifeguard at Peninsula Park used to tell everybody in the free swim that carloads of men from Killingsworth kidnapped girls like us all the time and did it to them over and over in the double doggy style. When we got to Lombard Street and into downtown St. John's, Bobby drove past the Coronet store, where Dale was the assistant manager. "Honk and wave," she said, but I left my hands at my sides. The last time we visited Dale at work, he was refusing to give somebody a refund on a stuffed animal. The man asked for store credit, but Dale pulled a...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?